Hello, my needle drops. Toothany Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Bug album, Angels and Devils. This is the fourth full-length LP from London-based songwriter and electronic music producer, The Bug, aka Kevin Martin, a guy whose musical experience spans decades and ranges from dubstep to grime to UK bass, industrial, techno, experimental hip-hop, and it doesn't stop there. He has collaborated with numerous artists over the years, whether that be on full-length projects, guys like Justin Broderick of Napalm Death and Yesu, and he's collaborated with a number of other artists as well, just on single songs through having them come onto his records. And under this Bug pseudonym, which is just one of his many bands or side projects or solo efforts that he's played with over the years, he has dished out quite a few sticky singles, especially off of his last full-length LP, which was his most commercially successful to date. And I essentially went into this new record of his kind of wondering how he was going to keep that momentum up. Would he change his sound? Would he focus more on just putting out more concise singles? But I was surprised to hear that this new record of his, I think, has a little less single power and maybe a little more star power, at least for underground music listeners over here in America, because among others featured on this LP are Liz Harris, aka Grouper, there's Gonja Sufi, the psychedelic hip-hop mystic, and Death Grips, which, considering Kevin Martin's work in the experimental hip-hop / industrial group Ice many years ago, is kind of like things coming full circle. There are also numerous features of the UK-based rapper Flowdan, who you may remember from a moment or two on The Bug's last full-length LP. And with these musical guests, Kevin indulges in a series of different musical genres, ranging from trap to IDM, experimental hip-hop, and industrial music, as well as some experimental dancehall. However, this album's variety and its guest list to me are significantly more impressive than the content that's actually delivered. Unfortunately, at least for the first half of this LP, Kevin seems to dish out one underwhelming track after another. Songs that cycle through many of the same parts, don't really build that significantly toward the end of the track, offer very little in terms of progression. A lot of the songs on the first half of this LP feel more like motifs or ideas that could start off or be the first half of more structured, more fleshed out, more climactic, and more well-developed songs with multiple parts. The first half of this LP definitely sounds nice. It has a nice tone. There are a lot of nice textures to it. There's a decent vibe going on here. But at about 2 minutes into each of these songs, I kind of end up wondering, okay, where are we gonna go next? And the answer often is nowhere else. There's the song Pandy, which is kind of a slow-moving synthesizer interlude, several tracks into the album where we didn't really need it. The track just builds and builds and builds and builds very slowly, and then at the very end, it's just, we're done. The song Void, featuring Liz Harris, is a pretty interesting track. It has a great vibe. I love the heavy, enveloping, warm, resonant bass on this song, the ethereal atmospheres which seem to have been brought by Liz herself, some of it coming from her voice, some of it coming from like a really weird spare piece of percussion, which could be anything from her clapping her hands to smacking a stick on a piece of wood or something. The rattling trap-style hi-hats on this track are interesting too. It's a very gentle, chill instrumental, although I do think that Liz's vocals may work so much better in more of an ambient context because they kind of get lost in the haze of this instrumental for the most part. It's a beat that to me feels so urban, so concrete, and yet the whole thing feels like it's underwater. And then there's the song Save Me, which might just be the most aimless track on the entire LP and features Gonja Sufi. And it's not really one of his more hard-hitting tracks here. It's kind of like having a personal meditation session with Gonja Sufi, where he's kind of moaning and singing very quietly to himself for about 5 minutes, even though it feels like 55 minutes when I'm listening through it. I can take or leave many of the tracks on the first half of this LP, honestly. The only song that I really feel like I have any strong affections for is maybe Me Lost with Misread, which takes a very quiet, cute, and very endearing piece of dancehall music, and gives it some very industrial, grimy, sort of tattered percussion and synths. It's a song that is as strange as it is smile-inducing. And then once the second half of this album rolls in, it's like a night and day difference. We're getting hard, hitting, grimy bangers. It's like a tale of the two-sided album on this record. If you get this album on vinyl, you're really going to be dealing with two different EPs almost once you flip this thing over. There's the song Function featuring grime rapper Mango, which is maybe my favorite track on the entire LP. The hi-hats are so loud, they're so sharp on this thing, the bass kicks are huge, his flow, his delivery, it's just insane, high energy. If you're a Danny Brown fan, definitely check this song out. And let's go to the infamous Death Grips song on this record. It's a decent track. It's like we're getting another grime-flavored instrumental here, but MC Ride is over the song doing his usual vocal mayhem thing. And this verse for him is pretty typical, but the collaboration still turned out well, and it's encouraging to see that this first big collaboration off of an album of Death Grips's could mean that maybe Zach or Ride or Flatlander could collaborate with somebody else in the future and make some decent music too. The sonic assault continues on tracks like Fuck You, featuring vocals from Warrior Queen. The instrumental on this track is insane, and so are her vocal contributions to a degree, but I do think there are moments where she kind of gets lost in the mayhem of the song. However, my favorite Flo Dan vocal contribution comes on the song Dirty. To me, instrumentally, this track feels sort of like part two of the song Function, except Flo Dan is sort of bringing a slightly more conscious and socially aware lyrics in his verses here. To tell you the truth, even though this side of the album is way more hard-hitting and inherently more engaging than the first half, it is a little one-dimensional. This is an alright LP. I came out liking it overall, but there are some seriously underwhelming tracks in this track list. Not only that, but the entire album itself feels a little bit too much like just a random collection of tracks put together with no real attention paid to the flow that they have together, outside of putting the quieter tracks, the Angels, on the first half of the record, and putting the harder tracks, the Devils, on the second half of the record. I'm feeling a decent to strong 6 on this LP. Tran? Sweaty, if you've given this Bug album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano. Subscribe. Have a nice day. Drink your water. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Get a good night's sleep. Believe in yourself. Follow your dreams. Help others. Forever.